Hello, everyone. Hello, high level listeners. Welcome to our newest vocabulary class for IELTS vocabulary.
Hello, high-level listeners. Yes, welcome back. We're having another IELTS vocabulary class on the topic of cakes. Maybe you already know about the IELTS test. It's a popular standardized test for people who want to get visas or go to university in English-speaking countries like the UK, Canada, the US, and lots of others. I am an experienced IELTS teacher. I've helped more than 300 students get the band they need through one-on-one lessons. I've also developed an entire IELTS grammar course to take your English and your IELTS band to the next level. The links to that course, my website, and also my one-on-one profile are available in the description below. Anyway, in this class, I'm going to show you some vocabulary words about today's topic, and Kat will be there to help me. Kat will be acting like an IELTS student, so you'll have a bit of help through the vocabulary as well. And we're going to look at 6 vocabulary words on the topic of cakes. The topic of cakes in such a serious, standardized test. Okay, I'll start that line again.
Right.
You might think that cakes is quite a casual or random topic for such a serious test, and you would be right, but IELTS chooses these tricky or random topics on purpose because it's one of the fastest ways to find the limits of your vocabulary. With our help, though, the limits of your vocabulary are about to get a little bit higher. So let's get started and look at the vocabulary table we're going to be filling out this video. You can see the vocab table has 3 columns: eating, texture, and type. There are going to be 2 vocabulary words in each column. We're going to introduce a word, explain it, give some examples, and then we're going to place it in the correct part of the table. That way, the table fills up, it stays nice and organized, and you'll have a really nice, useful revision table of vocabulary at the end. So when you want to make your answers, you'll have a handy list of words to use. Let's go ahead and look at the first. Oh, yes, sorry. Do you have a question?
So I understand the word eating, but what is texture and what do you mean by type? Type of cake?
Yes, I'm talking about the different types of cake and the different ingredients or things that go on the cake or inside the cake.
Okay.
So we'll look at some different types of cake, a way to describe them quickly and easily. The texture of a cake is how it feels when you bite it.
I see.
It could, yeah, so it's the texture you feel on your tongue, the texture in your mouth. We'll look at 2 vocabulary words to describe cake texture as well. So the first vocabulary word is fluffy. Fluffy. So, is fluffy about eating cake? Is it the texture of cake? Or is it a type of cake?
Okay, so I can see in the picture that the cake itself is very fluffy. It looks very airy. It looks like if I put it in my mouth and bit into it, that it would feel and taste very spongy, fluffy, very airy. So I'm going to go with the word texture.
Very good. Yes. Fluffy describes the texture of a cake. A word that Kat used there was airy. So, yeah, airy and fluffy are good synonyms. A fluffy cake is not very heavy. There's lots of air inside. Maybe the cake is quite tall because it's full of air and it expanded in the oven. It also means you can eat a little bit more because a fluffy cake may not be so heavy and filling. There's a type of British cake, a traditional cake called a Victoria sponge. A sponge cake also has little pockets of air inside of it, and it's a nice fluffy cake. I also feel like you could squeeze a cake, a fluffy cake, and it would grow back into its old shape. That's how you know it's a fluffy cake. So that word goes into the middle. Fluffy describes the texture of a cake. Are you a fan of fluffy cakes?
Yeah, definitely. I often like those fluffy tea cakes. So just kind of a simple little slice of cake, not too heavy, not too dense, just nice and fluffy. That way I don't feel too full after I've had a piece of cake. It's just a little nice little snack or something to go with my coffee or tea.
Very nice. Okay, let's look at our second vocabulary word. The word is indulge. Indulge. So, is this about eating cake, the texture of cake, or a type of cake?
Well, to indulge in something, he looks like he's about to eat it. So I'm going to go with indulging is similar to eating.
Absolutely. Yes. I like this picture. It's a good example of indulging. Indulging means eating your cake, but also really enjoying it. You think of the chocolate flavor, that delicious, beautiful chocolate. When you bite into it, all the flavors fill your mouth, and it's really, really delicious. You try and indulge something when you eat it quite slowly.
Mhm.
A lot of people think cake is quite naughty, it's high in calories, or it's not very healthy. So when they eat their small piece, they really want to enjoy every single bite.
If
I
I'm
also,
going to eat that many calories in one sitting, I want it to be nice and slow and take a long time. I really want it to be worth it. So I'm going to indulge.
yes, it's also a word when you feel uh, not guilty, but you know that maybe you're on a diet, or maybe you shouldn't eat so much in one go. To indulge is also, yeah, a little bit naughty. Like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but that chocolate cake looks so good. Oh, go on then. I'm going to try a bit. I'm going to indulge and cheat a little bit. So, indulge goes in the eating column. Let's look at the third word,
Mhm.
velvety. Velvety. It's a good word to practice your V sounds if you find them difficult. Remember to put your top teeth on your bottom lip. Velvety. So, if a cake is velvety, or if I'm talking about velvety cake, is that eating, texture, or type?
Velvety is one of my favorite textures of cake. I love the taste of like this one kind of looks like a chocolate mousse cake. It's just smooth and it really just tastes very smooth and easygoing on my tongue. So it's velvety. And now I really want a slice of this cake.
Yes, that cake looks beautiful and velvety. Fluffy cake or sponge cake might be quite dry, a little bit. Velvety, I think, is the opposite. Velvety is creamy, smooth, may have a lot of chocolate. And yes, you're going to put it in your mouth. It's going to cover your whole tongue and it's going to be delicious. Also, when you cut into it, when the knife goes into the cake, the knife might
Like
slow
nothing there.
down.
Uh-huh.
Oh, right. Yeah, it might be so easy. Just
It's just
right. I also imagine this cake to be a little bit heavier. If something's velvety, it might be a bit heavier because it probably has a lot of chocolate or a lot of cream in it. So,
Mhm. I think of kind of a lot of oil, cream, butter, keeping that cake nice and moist as well. That would be definitely very velvety. Does it have to be chocolate? No, I can think of other flavors as well, but I definitely think of a chocolate mousse cake as the ultimate velvety cake.
nice. Yes. So, let's pop that one in the table. That's the second one about texture. So, a fluffy cake and a velvety cake both describe different textures. Let's go on to the fourth word, iced. Iced. I know it has a D on the end, but because it's CED, it becomes a T. Iced. So, is this about eating cake, the texture of cake, or a type of cake?
Now, when I first see this word, I think of iced tea, but I know that we don't put ice on cakes. But it made me think of the word icing. Icing is the sugary glaze that you put on the cake. So if it's an iced cake, then I think that's the type of cake I want to buy, the iced cake.
Exactly. Yes. If you say, "Oh, I'm making a cake," your friend goes, "Oh, nice. What's on it? Or what type?" It's going to be iced, an iced cake. You can see in the picture that white uh, on the top, that is the icing, but we're describing the type of cake. So we'll use the adjective iced. It's an iced cake. I made some lovely iced cakes, or the cakes were iced with white icing. So we can put that into the table now. That goes under the type of cake. Are you a fan of iced cakes? Do you like that flavor?
It depends on the icing. If I'm going to get an iced cake, I usually like something light and fluffy on top. If it's a really thick icing, I don't normally like those types of iced cakes where it's more icing than cake. That's not really my favorite type of cake.
Right, when it's a layer like this thick,
Ugh,
and then the
mm-mm.
actual cake is like this big. So, yeah, a lot of those really nice decorated cakes that have beautiful writing or some figures on it look amazing from the outside, but then you cut into it and you realize like 50% is just the icing. And then that's kind of sugary and not very filling. Okay, let's go on to our fifth word, partake. Partake. So, is this word about eating cake, a texture of cake, or is this a type of cake?
The picture also reminded me that partake really makes me feel like we're sharing. So if we're at a birthday, it's customary to have a slice of cake. Even if you don't really want to eat a lot of cake, it's customary to partake. That means be a part of the group and share the cake together. And of course, what do you do when you share cake? You eat it. So partake is to eat cake.
Yes, exactly. It's a funny word because in reverse, it's take part. And you might take part in an activity or take part in an event. We've also got partake, which means kind of the same thing. To partake means to join in, try it, and do it. In a wedding,
Comes
for example.
from the French word partage, which means to share.
Oh la la, there we go. So yeah, at a wedding, a British wedding or a Western wedding, there is a big wedding cake. The
Mhm.
bride and the groom, they take the first slice, of course, but then it's a big cake and there's usually lots of guests, so they share the cake out. Also at weddings, there's also lots of food. So maybe you're already full from dinner or from the meal, and then somebody gives you a slice of cake. It is customary to partake in this. Even if you're full, even if you just take a little bite off the end, you partook in the event and you have been polite and respected the customs. So you might partake in some cake even when you don't have room for it, but it's the polite thing to do. So let's look at our very last word. You can see where it's going to go. The word is filled. Filled. So
Well, I
what
can
is this
see
cake?
I see that before we cut this cake, it was completely filled with chocolate. So this is another type of cake. Actually, I really do like these kinds of cakes too, where they are filled. They have a filling. They are filled with something. So a chocolate filled cake, a strawberry filled cake is a type of cake.
Yes, absolutely. Is this a lava cake?
I would
Is that what
call
you
it a
call it?
lava cake, for sure. They're really difficult to make. You have to put the chocolate in the middle at the right temperature so that the cake cooks on the outside, but the chocolate in the middle isn't too cold or too hot. It's quite hard to bake.
Right? Yeah. So, like iced, we're putting a D or an ED on the end because we're describing the cake. So, this is a chocolate filled cake. Again, the Victoria Sponge British cake I mentioned at the beginning is filled with cream and jam. So, between the two big layers, they put jam and cream and put them together. So, it's filled. It's filled with jam and cream. And that completes our table. We've got 6 great high band words you can use to talk about eating cake, the texture of cake, and now the types of cake as well. So, to demonstrate how useful this kind of vocabulary can be, I'm going to ask Kat 3 IELTS speaking questions about cakes, and she's going to try and use some of this vocabulary in her answers. The first time she reads it, we won't show you the script, but I want you to listen out and see if you can hear any of the words in this table. Yes,
I'm a little nervous about using all the vocabulary in the table. Could you read through them once more for pronunciation?
absolutely. Good idea. The first word, indulge, partake,
Partake,
fluffy,
fluffy. That's a nice one.
velvety,
Velvety,
iced,
iced,
filled.
filled. Okay, I think I've got it.
Okay, so here comes the first question. Do you like to eat cake?
Yes, I really like to eat cake. The fluffy texture and the sweet ice topping make it a delightful treat for me. But I also love it when I can indulge in a piece of velvety chocolate cake too.
Very nice. Okay, so did you hear any of our vocabulary words in Kat's answer? There's actually plenty. Uh, there's 4 in total. The fluffy texture, sweet iced topping. I can indulge in a piece of velvety chocolate cake. It's good here to see the words in sentences because then you can also see the words before or after. In this case, indulge in. There is a preposition with that verb, indulge in a piece of cake, indulge in a piece of chocolate, or indulge in something sweet. So don't forget that preposition. Okay, I'm going to ask Kat another question about cakes. When do people usually eat cakes in your country?
Well, in my country, we usually eat cakes on special occasions like birthdays and weddings. So you'll definitely see beautifully iced or decorated cakes there. Sometimes we also might partake in some cake during small family get togethers as well.
Very nice. Okay, did you hear any vocabulary in that answer? There were 2. Beautifully iced. That's a really nice combination of an adverb and our adjective. Beautifully iced, perfectly iced, thickly iced, heavily iced, if you think it's too much. But yeah, a beautiful cake with lots of swirls and shapes and decorations will be beautifully iced. We
Now,
also see
we
the
had
verb. Sorry.
Sorry, teacher. We had 6 vocabulary words, and I only was able to use 2. Is that okay, or should I try to use more vocabulary?
It's a good question. It's absolutely okay to only use 1 or 2 of these higher band words in an answer. If you try to put in all 6 in one answer, first, it would be really, really difficult. And secondly, it probably would start to sound less and less natural. Your IELTS examiner will be a native speaker, and they're familiar with something called awareness of style. This is under band 7 of IELTS vocabulary. Awareness of style means you're a clear communicator and you're able to use appropriate words and create answers that are not so overwhelming with information that they're difficult to understand. So actually, just one or two per answer is absolutely enough. If you start adding more, your score will stop increasing. So yeah, you did the right thing. Just one or two words per answer.
Okay, thanks.
Last question. Have you ever tried to make a cake yourself?
Oh, yeah. I've tried to make a cake myself a few times. It's not easy, but it's quite fun. Getting the cake to be fluffy and properly iced is a bit challenging, but I enjoy the process. The last time I tried, I made one filled with strawberry jam, and it turned out really tasty.
Excellent. Okay, wonderful answer. Did you hear any of the vocabulary in there? Fluffy, properly iced. So another combination of adverb and the adjective. Beautifully iced, properly iced. And I made one filled with strawberry jam. Again, in a full sentence, you get to see the extra important words like filled with. So it's filled with chocolate, filled with jam, filled with vanilla, anything you like.
Now, for these questions and answers, is this a certain part of the IELTS test? Will you see this kind of at the beginning or at the end of the test?
These questions are currently an IELTS speaking part one topic. So these questions come at the start of the test. Part one is between 9 to 12 questions, and they're all personal questions about you, your life, and your country. So questions like, do you like? Do you try this? Have you tried this? Those kinds of questions are typical in part one.
Are they going to ask me 9 questions about cake?
Good news, no.
Okay.
I'll ask you
Okay.
9 questions on 3 different topics.
I thought I
So
might have to study another 30 vocabulary words on cake.
oh, right. Yeah. Fortunately, not. Usually it's 9 questions, 9 to 12 questions on 3 different topics. So it could be
I
about
see.
your
I see.
work, then tea and coffee, which is another IELTS vocabulary video we've done, and cakes. So it could be those 3 topics. So usually about 3 or 4 questions per topic.
Okay, cool.
Right. So, yes, here's your vocabulary table. It's nice and organized. You're free to try and use these vocabulary words when you answer questions about cake. On the next slide, here are the questions that I asked Kat. All of these were the IELTS Part 1 questions. See if you can give your own answer and use some of the vocab words from the table. Do you like to eat cake? When do people usually eat cake in your country? Have you ever tried to make a cake yourself? You can also write your answers in the comments below and we'll have a look at them. We'll give you some feedback. And yeah, we do reply to everyone who comments. So please give it a go. Try and practice your IELTS answers with us. Okay, thank you very much for watching and studying with us. Again, my IELTS resources, websites, my one-on-one profile are all available in the description below. I particularly recommend the IELTS grammar course because I think that course and the foundation of grammar you'll get, plus these vocabulary videos would work super well together. I think you would have really a lot of confidence in your grammar to make answers, and then adding this vocabulary to those structures will take your answers really to band 6.5, 7, and higher. So thank you very much for watching again, and we hope to see you again for another IELTS video soon.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye.